Alright, welcome to the second half of how to make a steampunk robotic mechanical arm. Thanks for joining me, and if you missed out on the first video, you can find it in the link below or in the little eye thing that comes up in the top corner. Before we jump back into making the arm, I thought I'd give you a 360-degree view of the finished piece just so you can refer back to it if you need clarity on where something is supposed to go. But we can't just sit around looking at arms spinning in space, let's get back to work. Make the ventilation duct by gluing piece 32 on top of piece 31, and then gluing that down onto piece 16, which looks a lot like the letter E. Now you can glue that big old letter E on the inside of the arm. Flip the arm over and glue piece 17 in place, and accessorize it with a few fake rivets. Let's make the hydro-accelerating cylinder by gluing the ends of piece 15 together. Glue the end cap, piece 53, onto the flat side, tacking it down on one point and then the opposite point, and then working your way around it with the glue. Piece 19 gets glued to the back of the arm, and then the hydro-accelerating chamber gets glued into that. Now you can cover up the seam on the chamber by cutting a 12mm wide strip of foam and wrapping it around the top edge. And make some pen back rivets on the mounting plate. I guess we might as well make the bicep manifold now, so take piece 22 and make a tube. Then take your end pieces, which are piece number 14, heat them up with a hairdryer and use your hands to shape them into a dome shape. Glue those domes on each end of the tube. Cut a 10mm wide foam strip and wrap it around each end of the cylinder. This covers up the seam between the cylinder and the dome cap. And let's put a third strip in the center for reinforcement. Add the two mounting brackets to the bottom, which are piece 21, and then glue the entire bicep manifold assembly onto the bicep. Glue piece 52 on the middle rung of the E, and then glue on a whole bunch of 12mm circles, which you can make look like screw heads by cutting two slots halfway down and then removing the center piece. Now cut some circles from thinner foam and glue them into place. A couple half circles up here, and 3 circles up here that we don't make into screw heads. Then go crazy with your pen, making all kinds of rivets with the back of it, with the front of it, drawing lines with it, making more rivets, till your arm is just full of rivets. Since you're probably all sweaty and stinky from all that fast-paced pen work, grab your bottle of roll-on deodorant and use it up on yourself. You're gonna smell so fresh. Now you can carefully pop the top off with a screwdriver and pull out that fancy little ball. Cut a strip of foam about half the depth of your ball. This will of course depend on the size of the ball in the deodorant you're using. Glue the ball into the foam strip and then the foam strip onto the arm. Add a few more dots. And then pull out your pen and go crazy again. Alright, it's time to wire this thing up. Make 2 holes in the front panel of the acid core unit, grab some wire, and route it as shown here. In other videos I've shown you this technique using line trimmer wire, but I found this big spool of wire at the thrift store and it's actually a lot easier to use because you don't have to heat it up to bend it. If you don't have a thrift store or your thrift store doesn't have big rolls of wire, you can find some at your local hardware store. When you have the wires the way you want them, you can super glue them down onto the foam. Let's run a third wire from the front of the acid core unit to the side of the gears and things panel. Run a wire from the middle receptacle on the top of the arm around the bicep manifold and into the circle on the center rung of the E. A wire from the top of the bicep manifold to the first receptacle and a wire from the bottom of the bicep manifold to the third receptacle. One from the bottom of the hydro-accelerating cylinder up and around into piece 17. And another one from piece 17, this time into the side of the hydro-accelerating cylinder. Why not add a bit of variety with a piece of 1/4-inch vinyl tubing? Sweet. Cut off your elbow hinges, leaving about 7mm sticking out. Heat it up with your glue gun and spread the rivet out. I use the back of a screwdriver. Alright, now you get to paint it black. And for the best results with my metallic paints later, I give it 3 coats. Just try not to paint the inside edge of the lip around the gears and things, or the 2-piece number 12s. While we're waiting for the black paint to dry, let's put together the handpiece. piece 34 on top of 33, and that goes on piece 18, and piece 35 and 2 dots. Glue the ends of piece 8 together, and curve and glue piece 18 on top. Notice that the front edge of piece 18 sits a little ways back from the front edge of piece 8. Add a dot and some fake rivets, and that's it for the handpiece. Now you can do most of your finishing painting with your metallic paints. I won't go into detail here, but I'll try and make another video with some of my painting techniques. You can find the paints I use in the description below the video. Grab some bamboo skewers, cut them to length, and glue them in place to create a grate to protect your gears and things from harm. And then paint them up. Now you can watch my video how to make a fake hydraulic piston and make one of your own. Find the video link in the upper right corner or the description below. Make it with the 1/2-inch PEX pipe being 11.5 centimeters long. Once your cylinder is done, set it aside and grab another piece of 1/2-inch PEX pipe. Mark and drill a hole 12 millimeters up from one end. You're going to use a short piece of bamboo skewer to go through this hole, so that's the diameter you want it to be. Stack 2 piece number 13s on top of each other and glue them together. Push your pipe through the center hole and then insert the wooden dowel. Shove the whole contraption into one of the discs with the wooden dowel going into the cutout slot. Slide the foam nut all the way down and then the cylinder on top of that. Mark the top edge of the cylinder and drill a small pilot hole 4 millimeters above that line and lined up with the hole on the other end. Follow that hole and drill right through the pipe with a drill bit that'll fit your 1/4-inch tubing. It's best if the tubing can fit nice and snug through that hole. And cut your pipe a little bit above the hole you just drilled. Wrap a piece of aluminum tape around the pipe, cutting the tape away where the holes are. Stick the dowel back in its hole and glue it all in place in the arm. Push the foam nuts over the pipe and glue them down to the circular piece. This does a really good job of making a nice secure pivot point for the cylinder. Repeat this whole process for the top pivot point and then paint those nuts. Then slide the hydraulic piston over the pivot points and push through a piece of 1/4-inch tubing to lock it into place. The end of the hose from the upper pivot point will go into the top of the hydroaccelerating chamber. The end of the lower hose goes into the back of the acid core unit. A bit of glue to make sure it stays in place and a fake screw head on top. For the hand cylinder, cut 2 1/2-inch pipes and 2 3/8-inch pipes, all 6.6 centimeters long, as well as 4 1/2-inch pipes 1.8 centimeters long. These cylinders will get made pretty much the same way as your first one did. The only difference is I want to stop on the inside of the cylinder to keep it from pulling out. We'll do this by cutting a thin strip from a plastic lid 3.5 centimeters long and gluing that piece into one end of the cylinder. I try to get it kind of in the right place, and then I go back with my glue gun and heat it up from the inside without any glue so it forms to the inside of the tube and sticks there. You just want to make sure you don't get too much glue on the inside or your other pipe's not going to fit through the hole. Add a little bit of glue along the top edge, and then check to make sure that your inside pipe is still going to fit in there. Cut a 5mm wide by 30cm long strip of aluminum tape, and wrap it around the back end of the smaller cylinder. Cover the outside of your large cylinder with some tape. Now slide the smaller tube in the bigger one, and glue the ends on. Paint them all up, then grab your 7/16" tubing, and using the hinged rivet technique, attach them between the arm and the handpiece. And that's the last thing you're ever going to need to paint black. Well, that's it, all done. You are now the proud owner of a super awesome robotic steampunk arm. Show your friends, show your family. They'll be amazed at your amazing artistic talents. And as always, if you want to buy my pattern or any others, there'll be a link here. There's probably a link if you click the little eye icon in the corner. There'll be a link in the description below. Not too hard to find if you know where to look. Anyways, thanks for watching. See ya. Some people say I'm a man, some people say I'm a machine. I say, I'm a man-sheen.